Welcome back. We are Nagarjuna's investigators. This is March 5th, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you just by way of your thinking of them. They're gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then when you hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know that's possible. Learning about karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so we turn our mind back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know. They know what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world. They are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers, the great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. My mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kaunirya. I go for refuge until I am enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, to the merit that we do in this investigation and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that we do in this investigation and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that we do in this investigation and the rest. May all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. So the good news is that Geshe Michael is now translating Jetsun Kappa's Ocean of Wisdom text, which is Jetsun Kappa's commentary on Nagarjuna's root text wisdom. So we'll have something that to study along with, he's just done the first opening and so forth, but I'm keeping track. So maybe by the time we get to where we don't have verses anymore, that we can go back and dig into Jetsun Kappa's commentary and just do this in a little different way. That will be fun and hard. All right then. So we were still working on the chapter investigating, starting, stopping, staying, if you recall. So let's see if we can get back into that. Elsie is once again at the top of my list here.
Thank you, Lama.
Yes, would you start with the opening, please?
Opening. Here I have made a song for you on the very root of the middle way, which I call wisdom. In the language of India, this text is called Prajnanama Mula Madhyamaka Karika. In the language of Tibet, it is known as Uma Sewe Siklu Japa. In English, we call it wisdom, a song on the route of the middle way. I bow down to Manjushri, the glorious gentle voice in disguise as a teenage boy.
And Joanna, 1.1.
Thank you. I bow down to the highest of teachers, to the fully enlightened one who teaches us to reach that peace where our fantasies about how things exist are put to a final rest.
And Roxana.
Teacher Harvey Mama. I bow to the one who taught us that things happen in dependence. Nothing ends and nothing begins. Nothing stops, but nothing ever lasts forever. Nothing comes and nothing goes. No two things are different, nor are any two the same.
And Janet, 1.3, please.
Nothing grows from itself. Nothing grows from something else. Nothing grows from both. And nothing grows without a cause. There's nothing at all that grows at all.
Still makes me laugh. All right, so first chapter goes into what? All the different kinds of things that we think are causes for things. And the conclusion that he brings us to is there's no causes for things. What? Buddha said nothing happens without a cause. And our Kachik says, wait, but what does our Kachik say? But I do things. I go places, I do things. And Nagarjuna says, well, let's just check into what we think is going on when we go to do something. And we go through chapter 2, the going and coming, remember? And the going and coming argument is checking, looking to find the moment of shift from one experience to the next. And if we really, really dig down deep, we can't actually establish the moment that we go to do something. We can't establish the moment we shift from a non-goer to a goer, to a getting her there. You remember. It's kind of important because we come back to it. He says, go back to it again and again. And so the conclusion of chapter 2 is there's no goer going gone. Other than the experience we're having, right? Because we do have experiences of going, and goer, going, gone. In his conclusion, thus we can say there's no such thing as going or anyone going or anywhere to reach. And our Kachik says, yeah, but I do so experience things. And he goes into their powers, the 6 powers, through which we experience things. He used seeing. To show us that the way we think seeing is happening can't be happening in that way, and experience things the way that we do. And then he said, go back and do it for all the other sense powers as well, which would include thought. That one was harder to unravel, wasn't it? So he says none of those powers have any nature. And our Kachik mind says, what? You're saying I don't really have powers? Come on. Buddha taught we're made up of the 5 heaps. I do so have a physical form. I do so have my body parts. I do so. There is a me with my 5 heaps. And Nagarjuna took us into establishing where those heaps come from, what those heaps are. And it is odd because he's using cause and effect, causes and results, to investigate this heap of form that we think we have. When in chapter 1, he said there were no causes, but not no causes at all. Can you have a person without the parts of a person? No. Can you have the parts of a person without the person? No. It takes both. But do you have 2 separate things that come together? Or do you have nothing and suddenly 2 things? That's what he was saying in chapter 4. Is it cause, result? Cause, result. Can't be, right? So then our Kachik says, yeah, but Buddha taught us our heap of form is made up of those 5 elements. And he investigates the elements, but remember, he uses the element of space, like the hardest one, to wrap our minds around. And he goes at it by way of how is it that we define it. And when we use the word define, it doesn't mean like the words in the dictionary define. It means how do we tell it apart from everything else? Right? To define something. Does the element have to have its own characteristics for us to be able to recognize it? If it has no characteristics at all, what is there to recognize? Where does the defining of it come from? Without defining it, we can't know it's there. And if we define it, why can't we just define anything as it, right? It's not by choice. We're doing it, but it's not by choice. So he shows us this conundrum about the elements using space, and then tells us to go back and check the others in the same way, which we did together. That was fun. And then Arkachik says, but wait. Like he's just said there's no goer going gone. There's no sense powers. There's no heap of form. There's no elements. Arkachik hears he's saying there's none of all of that. Of course, that's not what he's saying. And then chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9, I think, we're about, us still saying, wait, it can't not be true that there's no me. Because that's what we're hearing, is that he's saying, none of this really exists. And so chapter 6 is like, I do, there has to be elements because there's things that I desire, right? I want this, I don't want that. There are things that are pleasurable and things that are not pleasurable. And so chapter 6 is that investigation of desire and the one who desires, the one who wants. And it's important because we could say that those 3 poisons are really 2 poisons, ignorance and desire, whether it's the desire for something pleasurable or the desire to avoid something unpleasurable. It branches out to all those mental afflictions that through which we interact with the thing that we think has the quality in it that's going to bring us the pleasure we're wanting, and the things that we do to avoid the thing that has in it the qualities that we're trying to avoid. So we say, things do so exist because I want things and I want to avoid things. I desire pleasure. And so we went into chapter 6 about this desire and the one who desires, meaning the me and the thing I want and the wanting of it, right? There's the 3 spheres. And so he does that by way of what comes first, your desire or the thing that you desire. And then he points out that, you know, you can't find what comes first. And yet we think we blame the triple berry pie for the pleasure that we anticipate. And then we blame it for bringing that pleasure or not bringing that pleasure. And then we blame it for being done and have the suffering of change. So he had us look at that from different perspectives. You know, are we the desirer before we desire? Or after we desire? Or during the desire? And what makes the desire start? Where does our desire touch the thing that we're saying created it? Do they have to happen separately? Do they have to be separate things? He shows us that the two of desire and the person who feels it cannot exist either as things together or things which are not. And in the same way as desire, nothing. There's no other thing which can exist as together or not together. But wait, Nagarjuna. I do so interact with things. I do so make things happen. Things do happen to me. Like, it's not true that there's no me who desires that. Right? That's not what he's saying, of course, that there is no me desiring. So chapter 7, like, how does he get to the starting, stopping, staying to address our concern that it feels like he's saying that there's no self, no other, and no interaction between? It has to be about our being able to affect something to bring about change, right? Our ability to produce something. It must be about functioning things, right? Because it's the quality of function to start doing the function, continue doing the function, and finish doing the function. So somehow we've gotten from me desiring to me bringing about something happening that our kachik is clinging to. You know, it can't be true that there's no desire or desiring, because I make things happen. I experience doing things in my life. So he says, let's see. If you do when you do things in the way that you think you're doing them. How do we think we're doing them? We think we're not doing them, and then we start doing them. We are doing them, and we finish doing them, right? So there's dishes in the sink. Oh, I need to go do the dishes. At some point, I start doing the dishes. Then I'm doing the dishes, and then I'm done doing the dishes. I made myself do the dishes, didn't I? The dishes were there to be done, weren't they? So he says, let's check. Because if it's true that it happens the way you say, you decide to do the dishes and you start doing them, you should be able to find a moment when you actually start. And, I hear my own mind go, of course, it starts the moment I put the first water in the tub. But if we really stop to check, was that the first start of the washing the dishes? I had to have the thought to wash the dishes. So was the first moment of washing the dishes when I stepped up to the sink? Well, I could step up to the sink and do something else than wash the dishes. So it can't be stepping up to the sink that is the start of the washing the dishes. It has to be something else. You see, and so our mind doesn't naturally do that unless we're Arya Nagarjuna fanatics. And yet, if we were to do that, it would be quite fascinating to watch ourselves in this like motion picture movie where things seem to be happening, but they can't really be happening the way they seem to be happening so that they can be happening at all. And he wants to get us there by way of this exploration of starting. And chapter 7, he says, let's pin down the start. Well, doesn't that have to have a start as well? And so can you ever find the start of the start? And in chapter 7, it seems more clear he's going back and forth with Kachik. And at some point, the Kachik says about the lamp, right? Look, the starting can start the original start in the same way that a lit lamp lights itself at the same time that it lights the whole room. So the starting of anything is the original start and the continued starting. And then he says, well, if that's true, then when you turn the lamp out, it ought to get brighter in the room because darkness would right cover itself and all the darkness, and it would illuminate the darkness in the same way that a lamp illuminates itself. And it's like, what? And he goes on to say, and further, if the light dispels the darkness, then there has to be a place where the light touches the darkness. And if you can't find that, then any light should dispel all darkness. And they don't. They only dispel darkness to the point where they can't touch the darkness any further. But wait, darkness is an absence of light. How can a presence thing touch an absence to make contact? It's like, how does light work? But that's a distraction. His point was, how could this starting before it had started act to start its very own self? Right, and this is where we got to weeks in a row. Doesn't the start of something itself have to start? So how could this starting before it had started act to start its very own self? And how could something that had started act to start already started? That's ridiculous. And if something had already started, what else would there be to start? So once something has started and it's happening, you don't need to start it again and again and again, do you? Or do you? So technically we came
Isn't-
from chapter 6, desire, and the one who desires. At one point, does the triple berry pie start to cause the desire in me? At what point does my desire arise?
When a karma ripens, right?
Yeah, when our karma ripens. But how do
May
we
I say? Yes, yes. How do we
get to
work?
that conclusion when my karma ripens without like how do we find that answered from our direct experience?
Right now, as I was listening to you, I was trying to figure out in my mind, how is it that I receive information? Just by listening?
Yeah,
Because I'm going here, please bless my mind and please let me try to understand.
yeah,
And am I rationalizing what
yeah.
she's saying? And then I thought, look it up in the dictionary and see if that's the correct word that comes to your mind, rationalize. I looked
Yeah.
it over and it said elucidate, right?
Yeah.
And then I looked over elucidate. You know what it said? Enlightenment.
That's
So
interesting.
it is, but I think that's where we start. I mean, we go finding for something. That's what we're doing here,
Right, right,
right? And we have our minds have the power to rationalize, to internalize, to be able to decide.
right.
So that's a powerful karma to have, and to know
Yeah.
what we're going to be doing with it. So you might have the triple berry pie. You can decide either to eat it all or to share it.
Right,
So
right.
so each one of it in our own thinking process, in our own with our own ripening karmas, all those ripples that are just so many. One of them, I guess, one of them just ripens, and we are conscious of it, and that's
Right.
where we have the power. I think.
Yeah. All right, so are we ready to go on with chapter 7, like pick up where we were before? Okay. Then Elsie, please 714. I think there's more on the next page. Yeah,
No matter how you look at it, about as something already started or not yet started or in the act of starting, it is not started. This has already been covered completely with being already gone or yet to go or stepping now.
right. So any functioning thing. We can't find the actual moment that it starts to function, or it even comes into being in order to be able to function. And Joanna, 15.
At any instance of time where there is starting, this thing in the act of starting is occurring. How could you say that there is this thing in the act of starting, all dependent upon some starting? At the same time, it could never exist.
Let's see if that's the end. Yeah, it is. So I think this first quotation is our Kachik saying, no, at any instant of time, right, when something's starting, the thing is in the act of starting. Do you see the distinction is we're having this thing and then it starts writing. But his point is we're thinking there's a thing already there that goes from not doing to doing. And he's not saying the doing never happens. He's not saying there is no such thing as things doing things, but he's saying there's no thing that's independent that all of a sudden changes in some way and becomes something that's doing something. And then it's still being the same as it was over here. So here's the object over here. Now here's the thing. And then here's it starting to do something, but we're still thinking it's the same as here. And it's not, is it? And then it's done. And now it's the thing over here. And we think that the thing over here and the thing over there are the same thing. And it's like, well, it's not all of a sudden a horse. It is still a pen. But we're stuck in believing that that pen in it, from it, is this thing that will be in the act of starting. And we're using all different kinds of ways to say, no, that really can happen because the thing is there. The functioning thing has some nature of its own. Because if it didn't, it couldn't function. Right? We really do hold to that. And so the second paragraph is our Nagarjuna's answer. Wait a minute, how can you say that there is a thing in the act of starting all dependent on some starting? You can't have a thing independent that all of a sudden becomes dependent on something. Because independent means independent. You have to have one or the other. A thing that exists independently can't do anything. A thing that exists dependently only exists in dependence upon what it's doing, for instance, for a functioning thing. The pen I'm writing with doesn't exist until I'm writing with it. The pen I'm not writing with doesn't exist until I'm not writing with it. What about the pen itself? That pen would be the one I'm knowing, the one I'm seeing. There can't be a pen independent. Can there be? All right. So 16, Roxana.
Yes, thank you. Anything occurring in dependence is in and of itself peace. And so both this very thing in the act of starting and the starting as well are nothing but peace.
What does that mean?
Oh,
What's peace code for? Nirvana. What? Anything occurring in dependence is in and of itself nirvana? What's nirvana?
No
Freedom
mental
from
afflictions.
afflictions, right? So anything occurring in dependence is in and of itself free of mental afflictions. What's the like bottom line mental affliction?
Yeah.
Self-existence.
Oh.
The belief in self-existence. And if we can establish that something occurs in dependence upon something else, that establishes that the thing cannot be self-existent, what we mean by self-existent.
Right.
Like when we really get that connection, if anything depends on anything else, even worldly wise dependence on something else, that shows us that the thing does not exist in and of itself, independent of any other factor. I argue that we don't believe things exist independently of any other factor. We believe things do exist independence upon other things, and we irrationally believe that they still exist independently. Do you see why Nagarjuna is like banging his head against the wall with us? Because we believe these two contradictory things, and we hold to it so strongly that we argue with him for 27 chapters. I know things exist in dependence upon other things, and the thing has to exist it has to have its own nature in order to depend on something else. Our mind says, and when I hear myself say it, it's like, well, that's ridiculous, right? If it exists in dependence of other things, it doesn't have any independent existence. But if I hear myself say that, it's like automatically the mind goes, well, then they have, right? How can, it automatically goes to the, if they don't, if it's not a thing that's dependent on other things, then what do the other things create? It really is so slippery what we mean by self-existence. So highest school says there's nothing that can exist that's independent of the experiencer's experience of it. That's the meaning of to exist independence upon. And anything. Its dependence is upon the experiencer's experience of it. Now, when we say things exist independently, they have their own natures. We mean something would have a nature regardless. I'm stalled out. Help me finish that sentence. Independent of the experiencer. And now I have to admit, I believe that there are things that exist independent of my experience of them because I only experience so little at any given moment out of what I believe exists out there. So Arya Nagarjuna is trying to help us really grasp this level of finding how we can show ourselves the fact that every experience, the three spheres of the experience, are I can't say are unique. to the experience.
Right.
So anything occurring in dependence is in and of itself peace itself, meaning if anything depends on anything else, it shows us that it has no self-nature is the words that we use. But we have to understand what we mean. Right?
And
They
it's so
call it
easy to
peace.
stain. And like, for example, yesterday's class, Mahamudra, we were talking about wisdom and how easily we can stain our seeds, right?
Mhm.
Why we have them stained. And it was fun because I was going to take a bath yesterday, and then I decided, no, better yet, help my mom, wash the bathroom, everything. So I went over and I looked for the detergent, whatever she had to wash the bathroom. And she said, I only have Clorox. And and then I thought, oh, this is going to be something really virtuous to help my mom. And I started doing it. And then I thought, oh, I'm so happy that I have the motivation to be able to help her. But I left my clothes inside the bathroom because I was going to take first bath, which I didn't. And she only had Clorox. So when I went over to take a bath and to get my clothes, I saw that a new shirt had been stained with Clorox.
Oh.
And I go, that's a perfect analogy that we were
Yeah.
talking about. I was doing something virtuous with a high motivation
Yeah.
and it got stained. And then
Right.
I started analyzing, why did it get stained? And I thought, oh, I know, because my sister lives here in the same town as my mom, and she could have come over and helped her, and she didn't. And I go, no, 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 that's not. You're just putting the blame factor. It's your responsibility. It's your own karma.
Yeah.
Just change it. So that's
Yeah.
how we stain things with a high motivation. That's how
Right.
we stain our seeds.
Right. 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 Right.
So it was perfect. It was
That's a great
there.
example, right?
Yeah.
You can't get a bad result from a good deed. So stained blouse did not come from cleaning your mom's bathroom,
Right.
but the bleach particles did bleach out and stain the blouse.
Right.
Right.
We and of course I wasn't going to do that on purpose, right?
Yeah. Right.
I don't even know how it got there.
Yeah.
It just boom.
Right. Right.
So that's how we do things in life.
Exactly. Exactly. And it does not stain the good seeds, right? Of having cleaned your mother's bathroom.
Right.
To get that bad result doesn't make the seeds be bad. The seeds are
Right.
good. The planted seeds are good seeds.
Right. But anyway, they're good seeds, but then comes what goes through your mind while doing that,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because
Right.
I should have stayed all that time, all that period of time with a really high, strong motivation. And a lot of karma was ripening there. I was putting blame factor on my sister.
Right.
I wasn't taking responsibility on my own.
Right. Right.
It stopped. It stopped when I realized what was happening.
Good. Good.
But it
Good.
does take some analyzing as Nagarjuna is leading us here.
Right.
He's just sending us to dig deeper in
Right.
everything.
Anything occurring in dependence is in and of itself peace. It has no nature of its own. We know what the words are trying to say. And so this very thing in the act of starting, the starting as well, are also nothing but peace. So the functioning of things, nothing but peace. Is it peaceful to have your blouse stained by cleaning the bathroom? No. But does it have no nature of its own? Yes. Come on, anybody who got their blouse stained by bleach would be upset, wouldn't they?
To be
No.
honest, I didn't get upset and I still wore it.
Oh, good for
In the
you.
past, I wouldn't have, to be honest. But I just said, oh, this is a great example. You're beyond a bleached blouse.
Good. Nothing but peace. All right, we're not done with chapter 7 yet. Where are we? Janet, you're up, please.
Suppose there were some examples of things still unstarted somewhere. What would there be to start if there were no such thing which could start?
We do think there are things that have not started, like Joanna's future grandbaby. Well, it doesn't exist yet, but it could. They could, would be nicer to say. So can it start out of the blue? No, of course not. You know, her son needs to, you know. But at what point does that grandbaby actually start? This future thing. It could be a thing. It isn't a thing. Right? Or your next new car. Or if we check our minds in some weird way, we kind of think that there are unstarted things that are unstarted. They just haven't started yet. As opposed to like big blank, in which case we wouldn't even be able to think of Joanna's future grandbaby. There has to be such an existing thing. Well, yeah, there are other people's grandbabies that do exist that make us think of this unstarted something. And it's like, I don't think Nagarjuna is wanting us to remove this idea that are things that we've seen somebody else experience or we've experienced that aren't happening to us now. They could someday happen to us if they would just start happening. But his point is that somehow inside there, we are thinking of those things with their own natures that are just waiting for the circumstances to come together so that they can start for me. And his point would be, as long as you're thinking like that, right? It's not going to be the way you think. Yes, Janet.
I think according to Master Chandra Kirti's Entering the Middle Way, the issue is that we're not omniscient. So we don't see everything. So like when we look at the Buddha and the Buddha was a baby and then he saw suffering and then he like did his practices and then he became Buddha and he taught us. But, you know, like Jesus Christ was a baby and the Buddha was a baby. And then with omniscience, you know, he's going to be the Buddha.
Right,
But without omniscience, we're just there thinking he's a baby.
right.
So we
Right.
don't have omniscient, and that is the core of the issue, according to Chandrakirti, is that we don't see that we are already Buddhas, we're already gone. The Buddha was a Buddha, he is a Buddha. And until we have omniscience, we have this huge problem. We just don't know what's going on.
Exactly. Exactly. So actually, let's explore that. Omniscience means we're directly experiencing all existing things, the appearances, all appearances, and the empty natures of all of those appearances. All at once, always. Like, so you're directly experiencing the fact that anything that's being experienced, its nature is the blankness that allows whatever appearance is appearing to any being. So if we could say there was just one, let's just play. Suppose that there's this and only this. And then every existing being, this is their experience, meaning whatever, right? Words fail, but this is every existing being is focused here. And then you are the omniscient being. So that means as you focus here, your experience is what every one of those beings is experiencing when they focus here. So let's bring it down. Let's say there's 3 other beings looking, focusing here, and you, the omniscient one. And so this one sees it, right, in one way. This one sees it as a pen. This one sees it as a, burning spear coming at them. This one sees it as, a blazing rainbow. You omniscience experience it in all 3 ways. And it's emptiness of those 3 ways. It's lack of own nature, so it can be those own 3 ways, all simultaneously. Bigger, bigger, bigger by the number of beings that are perceiving anything. That's omniscient mind. And to get there requires compassion. We've learned, right? Isn't that Chandrakirti's like first half of his book is about compassion? And how compassion brings wisdom.
Well, in Master Shanti book, there's the meditation with 3 types of compassion.
Right.
And so, I mean, I've never really practiced compassion without focus, but it says in the homework assignment to do it. I have a tenant and he's pretty dirty and he's moving out. I'll get paid. His parents will pay me. I gave him his security deposit back and he didn't pay me. He's probably buying drugs, but I don't know. I shouldn't project on him. And so I chose him as the object to do compassion with no focus. Why? Why would I be concerned if I'm getting paid? Yeah, I'm getting paid late, but I'll get paid. And I have another tenant. I have a nurse that I used to work with, and he's starting a new job and he wants a place to live. And it's by Deer Park actually where he works.
Mm.
So it's nowhere near where I live. I live like 35 minutes of my house. I don't live there, but my house is 35 minutes. My rental property is 35 minutes away. And I said to him, I drive to Deer Park to go to these teachings, and gas is expensive and the rent is cheaper out there. If I were you, I would just live in Oregon by Deer Park and your job.
Yeah.
But he wants to live in my house. And so financially, I have everything settled. Why would I even be concerned about this nurse or about this tenant who's moving out? Because I think the world could be a different place. Like, I don't know anything about the world. I'm not omniscient. And am I being selfish that the money is there? But the fact that the money is there means that all the more reason why should I be concerned? I'm not trying to survive. This isn't a survival issue. So I go back to, well, it's compassion with no focus.
Yeah. Yeah. The no focus is the no focus on their self-existent nature. No, it's like what grows our compassion. I was reading recently. In fact, I think it was this ocean of wisdom. It was like when we understand the ramification of no self nature. Right? The ramification of no self nature is the nature that's there is my own unique results of my own past behaviors. And that means that that's any suffering is just this big mistake. And if anyone who actually realizes what Nagarjuna is wanting us to realize, we wouldn't have to grow our compassion. We would just look at somebody, see that they don't get it, and our heart would twist for them. And that's compassion. No, it's not focusing on them and their circumstance and their situation. And it's just like, whoa, I see them as a ignorant being, and that's enough for my compassion to grow because of my wisdom. We can see why that kind of compassion doesn't grow in a non-Arya. We can get it intellectually, but this automatic heart, my heart twists for anybody who misunderstands where their world comes from. Because it's source of
The thing
error.
is, I'm misunderstanding it too, because I keep going back to the compassion, the ordinary compassion for all phenomena.
Yeah.
That this guy isn't able to pay his rent and this person isn't living really efficiently. Well, it's not about paying rent and living efficiently, really. That's the ordinary compassion. When it comes down to it, you just really don't know what's going on. And then
Right.
in retrospect, you can piece it all together.
Mm.
But we're not in retrospect at this point. So we can only deal with what we're dealing with. And it's in some ways the touching with kindness. And maybe that's enough, I don't know.
Right. It's a start, certainly. Yeah.
Additionally to the pen and what do we see and all the others, we don't know what is in their mind. So if I try to think it from their point of view, just if they have like the mission to show us our whatever we need to learn. They're exactly doing what we need to see. So this is always a nice thought for me, that I don't know their mind, and if they have best intention, what do they try to show that I have to see?
Right.
That's
Yeah,
an
that's good.
interesting practice with.
Right. Suppose there were some examples of things still unstarted somewhere. What would there be to start if there's no such thing which could start? I'm a little confused about his question at the end, because it seems to me he's trying to point out that there isn't a thing that's unstarted, but I don't quite see how this gets us there.
In my mind, the example that I had in my mind is like the upcoming retreat, like the next one that we are going to do. It's not started yet, but well, maybe it is started already, and it can't really start. When does it start for me? When does it start for the others? It's just it already has started. It's like, so there's so many things with the starting and unstarting, and in the end, it's this beautiful mudra that you always do. It's like
Yeah.
seeds
Right.
shifting all the time. So that's cool.
But we're still planting,
Okay, so
right? I think
go
that's what
ahead.
he's trying. I think what he's trying to say is we're continuously planting seeds, although we are aware of it or not. So
Right, exactly. That's all that's going on. Seeds ripening,
Right.
seeds planting.
right.
But the ripening and purification is part of it too. I mean, going into retreat, I mean, I have different ways of doing purification, and I just learned I'm learning the Vajrasattva way. But if you're going into something and you're doing purification, you know, you're hoping that you'll end up seeing you hope you'll end up see different things because you've gone through this process with the intention of doing the purification.
Right. Right. It can get a little discouraging when we purify and then it happens more. And then we still purify and then it happens some more. I remember a phase of that, but it's still the purification is working. I mean, really just experiencing is purifying, right?
I mean, I actually, in doing purifications, I remember when I started ACI and I would look up the answer keys, try to answer the questions, and then I wouldn't remember it. And I thought I wasn't remembering it. And I would read things and not understand them. And I would blame the way, someone put the text together or there were typos and it was confusing. But things are different now. I don't understand everything, but I'll have questions and stuff will come to me, and then I'll have review, and then I'll understand something that I didn't understand before. I mean, I'm taking ACI 14 and it's the eight
Worldly
the eight
thoughts.
yeah, the eight the eight mind trainings.
Oh yeah.
And then the second one was when I see I'm with another, whoever we are, may I see them as the lowest, may I hold the other as the highest, and from the bottom of my heart. I was like, oh yeah. And I told them, like, Lama Sarani and I, we went over this. It was the object, the touching, and the subject. And if you touch someone high, you touch someone middle equal, and someone low, it's a different quality of touching.
Yeah.
And really, we experience subject and object, but ultimately it is the quality of the touching is the reason why we experience it the way we do experience it.
Mhm.
So I feel like now with some purification, I'm in kind of like a review mode, and all those things I didn't understand in review, it's like the dots are getting connected. And
Yay.
the way this was presented was that a lot of people took quotes from Nagarjuna and put things in there, and a lot of people use the tools in the mind training to help with our practices, and everything is interconnected. I don't want to describe it as it's independence, But I would say that in learning, if you have the overall picture and you want to connect the dots and you have enough of um, an analysis process, I mean, you can do it. You can connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I would disagree about this teaching of emptiness and not teaching it to people until they're not ready. I mean, okay, they're not ready, but maybe someday they'll be ready and then they can run across it and connect the dots. That's how I've experienced it because I wasn't ready, but I had people that encouraged me. So that was the difference. So I know that the high lamas and the people in the Buddhists that are teaching, they say, oh, it's wrong for people to teach emptiness if they don't have it and teaching it to people who aren't ready. But I guess, maybe everyone's just different. And I would say that, teaching the big picture is helpful for the person who's connecting the dots, including emptiness.
Right, right. When someone asks, when there's a curious mind.
But I didn't ask. I was just told by
Well,
my Lama to do it. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. It's kind of asking though. Your willingness to sit down and do it meant
You're ready.
you made that choice. As opposed to, you're with a friend at the cafe and you insist that you tell them about the pen thing. They
Mm.
want to talk about their granddaughter and you insist telling them on about the pen thing. And of course, they're not going to go along with it because they want to talk about their granddaughter, right? And so it's like that's the teaching emptiness to someone not prepared or uninterested. Because if maybe they catch on and like, wow, that's a fabulous, but probably they just, turn you off the way we turn off listening about the granddaughter, right? So, it's like I understand what the lamas are saying, and I understand what Geshe Michael says, and I understand the situation we get into, whereas like I'm not brave enough to sit people down that haven't asked and say, look, you've got to know this, right? This changed my life. You need to know it. I'm not going to impose myself on somebody like that because I don't want to be imposed upon like that.
Well, I
But
mean,
if you search it,
the problem with ignorance is that there's a lot of misunderstanding. I understand that. I had misunderstanding too. So when I make the statement, I see the divine with emptiness. The interpretation is I think that the divine doesn't exist at all. But that's
Yeah.
not what I mean. I just mean I'm not projecting. But it's
Yeah.
just too much explaining. And then the people are, like you said, they think I'm arrogant or
Right.
they think that you said something else, arrogant or something else. And I just don't know how to deal with that really. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess, the people around me, they don't care what ignorant people think. And
Right.
I guess I'm still in the stage where I care what the ignorant people think.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's okay to not know what to do because Shanti Deva would say just be the bump on the log, and it's better
Right.
just to say nothing at all.
Right. Right. Yeah. And use it to grow that compassion. We don't have to say anything. And we can just feel in our heart, oh man, I wish I knew what to do. I wish, right? Someday I'll be able to. Yeah, it's
Because
nice.
that grandbaby's in that conversation too. That grandbaby potentially could be a future Buddha.
Yes.
Looking at that baby with emptiness would maybe help that.
Right.
But they don't want to talk about that.
No. No. And so we start our connection with people just being a good listener for them, right? Tell me about your grandbaby. Who cares? But tell me about your grandbaby. Oh, she must be so sweet. Oh, she must look so cute in pink. Yes, show me another picture. Right? That's not a waste of time. That's not, being in worldly life. If our intention, like in our own heart, it's like, cool, someday all of us me, her grandbaby, all of us are on our paths, or all of us helping everybody get on, right? Just in the back of our mind to give them a little bit of pleasure and attention. I don't mean it disrespectfully. It sounds kind of arrogant. I'm just doing it for my own benefit. I can genuinely enjoy a, a, a ordinary conversation with someone for them, for their benefit, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but they're still coming from us. I mean,
They
it's
are,
it's our world, so
right.
you have
Not
to deal
but,
with
and,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And they're all coming from us,
Right.
which would be why to do it.
Right.
You want to be listened to about, like, I want to tell you about my grandbaby. It looks like this. How many grandbabies do I listen to before somebody's willing to hear about my grandbaby? I
Right.
must have done it because I've gotten to do this thing for many people, right? Many times. So that's
It's
how we,
awareness.
yeah,
You
But
know,
you, but you
it's
know,
a yeah. You, Janet.
I mean, you know that the world has changed a great deal within our lifetimes for women. You know, if that grandbaby is a girl, conversation, I mean, not to hijack the conversation, but you know, there's this rise of women that are holding the teachings. An army, I would describe it, an army of women that are holding the teachings. And
Yeah.
isn't that fascinating? And she could be a part of it. But that's hijacking the conversation. You
Right.
cannot say that in the 70s, the women had to like, you know, take care of the home and the kids while the man worked. And now, you know, men are more a part of it. And now women are like, it's okay for women to not only teach other women, but to teach men too. That's a conversation that's just not to be had with someone showing pictures of their granddaughter. That the roles of women have changed quickly within our lifetimes. And is it even that important? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've observed this.
Yeah.
I guess I'm observing it because it's coming from my side. But
Yes.
nobody really cares about that, you know? So I think in a little ways, other women do care, but there are a lot of women that want to uphold the way things used to be too. So I can't go there, you know.
Right, right, right. Tricky.
Quite tricky.
This conversation is so fun because all the time the underlying basis is always its seeds. So Janet started off with the purification. So there are seeds and we have to purify and then we have the intention in mind and we can even go to a conversation about grandbabies and different other things. So there's also the seed perspective in our mind. So it's always the seed thing. And I just caught myself thinking that, yeah, in 717 in this verse, I think that seeds are functioning things. It's like, for me, it's like, oh my goodness. So there's nothing outside by itself, yeah, but seeds are still in my mind so basically existing.
Right.
And they start the moment I plant a seed by a thought or an act or whatever. So I'm quite stuck there, I have to say.
Right.
Mm.
You know, we have a priest that he's a really dear friend of us. He went home last Friday. He was home and because I had bought some ghee for him. He got really excited. And I said, oh, look, it's from Holland. And I just bought it for you. He said, oh, okay, I'll go get it. And I said, well, I'm going to be translating mixed nuts and you can come after 10 o'clock in the morning. So he did arrive and he said, oh, I was making time. Also, I need to go cut my hair. And I said, well, I can cut your hair. Really? And he's up over 80. And I said, yeah, I'll be happy and it will be an honor if I can just cut your hair. So I cut his hair, but it was in the garden. And in the garden, I have a lot of Tibetan Buddhist flags. He goes, and those, what are those? I go, they're Tibetan flags. So each time that they wave with the wind, they're just sending out prayers. And he goes, ah, ah, in the garden, because I knew he was going to make a comment or he was going to do something. And I was really trying to avoid for him to plant a seed or to make me feel bad or whatever. I wanted to cut his hair inside the house so he would be in contact with my garden and what I have in my garden, the Buddha, and it's a beautiful garden. But I knew he wasn't going to be comfortable, him being a priest. So all the time I was concerned about him, about the seeds that he might be planting regarding to my garden and what was around my garden. So I guess that us as Buddhists, we're concerned all the time about the people who surround us. We care for them, we love them, we have that compassion. So even if I'm talking about my grandma, about my grandkids or with whatever, I'm trying to identify if I'm going over ahead. I mean, just showing pictures or talking about them, or if the conversation is going in a different direction. So I guess that's there's an awareness that we grow with our study, and we don't do things just out of random acts or whatever. We're trying all the time to plant beautiful, powerful seeds in everyone's mind, and we're also trying to avoid other people to plant bad seeds as well.
Correct.
That's
To the best of our ability, right?
best of our
Without
ability,
beating
right?
ourselves up when we mess up.
Right.
Without
To the best of our abilities,
the
definitely.
best of our ability. Yeah, nice.
So that's a big rejoiceable, and I think that's taking us to enlightenment. Definitely, we're on our way. So we have already started, all of us.
Yes.
All of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
Janet, don't worry.
We started something, Lama Sarani. How could that be? We started something.
Wait, when did it start?
Yeah, right.
Is it still starting?
We started.
Good one, Janet.
Elsie, is it still starting? Lama's asking you.
I think we have started because we're already on our way.
We blasted right through our break. Anybody need a break? Or shall we carry on?
I didn't even notice, to be honest.
Good. That's fun.
Yeah.
We're at 17:18, and I think we're back at the top, Elsie, are we? Or Janet, did you get to read? Okay. It goes off my page, but I'll follow along.
18 and 19, Lama.
Yeah.
Thank you. Suppose this starting could act to start something which was in the act of starting. How could you view that starting as starting with something acting to start it? If a starting that were something other started it, then they would do so endlessly. And if indeed the starting starts without that, then each and everything would have to start in the same way.
So this started from the premise that we think there's a thing, an existing thing that hasn't started yet. That's what he's talking about here, which is a little different than what the earlier verses were. So a thing that hasn't started yet has to have something else act on it to get it to start. So the unstarted thing that's somehow there and yet to start. Well, let's do it this way. Here's the pen. It has not yet started to write. So an existing thing that's unstarted. Something has to act on it for it to start.
You.
So if it takes something else how could you say that it's the pen that's writing if it takes this to make the writing happen? Wouldn't it really be this that's making the writing happen? Because this was here, not making writing happen. And then it depended on this for the writing to happen. So really it's the this that's making the writing. Wouldn't you have to say that?
But it looks like it's the intention that started the writing. Even if you have the pen and the hand, but there is no intention, it still wouldn't write.
Right. So that's what Nagarjuna is saying. If it all it took was this to make the writing, then every time you had this, you would have writing. And if writing happens independent of this, then you wouldn't need this at all. Writing would just be happening.
But the stock answer, of course, is it's coming from our past actions.
Exactly, which is where the intention kind of comes in, because the intention comes from the past action too. And then in order to carry out that intention, I need a this to contact this to make this. And all of that is results of past causes. The only causes, the conclusion of this book, I hope, is going to be the only causes that can bring about any result is the cause made by the imprint on our awareness by our action, which is not an action because it never touches the other thing, right? You get into this loop, which
But
is
the difference between this and the Abhidharma is to practice emptiness and good actions. That's the
Yeah.
difference.
yeah, together. Because of emptiness, we practice good action. Because the result of good actions is pleasure. Pleasure for everybody involved. Because the deeds we do to bring the pleasure is trying to bring a little bit of pleasure to somebody else, just trying. We can't actually do it. So you're absolutely right.
I guess it's also not trying to fix people or write a story for them, but to be in a really neutral position, but kind.
Right. Right. And our kindness would come up automatically when we understand their empty nature. Right? We wouldn't have to say, oh, and so I'll be kind. It's like, wow, this blank me, blank them, blank interaction. I want to make kindness. Yeah. Nice insights.
Remember when we were studying this chapter that I was thinking, and I remember that I even drew it. It's like you're playing bowling, and you have the ball, and it has already started, and it's going through the aisle. And although you have your motivation, your intention, exactly at where you want to pinpoint that ball, it could go wrong. I mean, it could go on the sides, or you could hit all the balls, or you could hit just one or two. So at the end, you don't know how it's going to end.
Right.
Your karma, what karma is going to be forcing the other one to come out, and the other one and the other one. And those are the projections and what you're going to be doing
Yeah.
out of them.
Good point. Intention alone doesn't do it, does it?
Right. No, it doesn't.
But Tim would say that's what bumpers are for.
Joanna, 7.2, please.
First of all, it would be wrong to say either that something which existed or which did not exist could start. Does it continue, Diorama?
Let's see.
Oh,
Yep.
huh. Neither could a thing which both existed and did not exist. This is precisely the one presented earlier.
Okay, so the pen not writing doesn't exist. Not at all? No. And so the pen writing doesn't exist either. Not at all? No. But then neither is the pen not writing a non-existent thing. And neither is the pen writing a non-existent thing. Because non-existent things can't start either. Okay? Even if things were non-existent, they couldn't start. Things we think that exist, the way we think they do can't start. So things that start and the way that they start must be happening in some other way, because things do appear to start all the time. Don't they?
So dependence means there's all this stuff going on, you know, the gun user, you know, people having sex, people having babies. But the teachings are that the main thing we're dependent on is our past actions, or maybe it's the one that we don't give credit for is our past deeds.
Right, right, right. That's the piece we don't know to give credit to until we study it.
Dependent origination.
Yeah, dependent origination. Right, which could be understood at all these different levels. Okay, highest dependent origination is everything depends upon every existing thing depends upon the ripening result of mental imprints made by past behavior.
Yeah, it's just that each mind of us, it's so different, unique, and special. And I'm learning from all of you.
It's
Thank you.
extraordinary.
Thank you so much. It's so
Yay.
extraordinary.
Yeah. So 21, Joanna.
Oh, it was just me, but I
Oh,
can continue.
Roxana. Thank you.
Starting with some entity in the act of stopping would be mistaken. Neither with something not in the act of stopping, it would be mistaken to call that an entity. Stopping what?
Starting with some entity in the act of stopping would be mistaken. So here's the pen doing the writing, and then it's done writing. Wouldn't we have to say that there's some point at which the stopping of writing starts. I'm writing. Now I'm stopping writing. Wouldn't logically you have to say there's a start to the stop? Because how do you go from writing to not writing? It's a change. It's a new
Right.
functioning thing. The stopping is a new event. Doesn't it have
Right.
to?
Doesn't have to stop. Like I'm reading, I'm starting to read, starting with some entity in the act of stopping. And then before 7:22 starts, I have stopped. That doesn't mean that I have stopped reading out loud. I'm still reading silently, right? And I haven't stopped. You can't hear me because I'm reading silently. That doesn't mean that I have stopped.
But when you stop, don't you have to start stopping?
Yeah,
Or you
but
can actually stop?
momentarily, maybe in an hour, I'll start again
Right.
reading something.
Well, I mean, by entity, he means by self-existence, starting with
Yeah.
something self-existent in the act of stopping. Neither was
But
something,
self-existently, yeah, but if self-existently is that I'm thinking that out of the ordinary, I'm just reading, it's my past actions, the ones that are that I'm that made me be here in the class, be here with you guys, and read Nagarjuna, right?
Right.
yeah, well, he's trying to say it's coming from your past seeds.
Right. That's what she's saying too.
Right.
Well,
Thing
I
is
mean,
that he has us thinking.
we know the answer, we just don't necessarily practice it in our lives.
And that's why we struggle with these classes to help remind us. So at least for an hour or two, we're like on point
But it's fun.
out of
It's
24
really
hours.
fun. I enjoy it.
Janet, back to you, 22.
An entity, a self-existent entity, having stayed, doesn't stay. An entity yet to stay doesn't stay. And where is something to stay when it hasn't started?
So he's just being thorough here. He went through all that stuff about starting. And then we get like 2 verses about stopping and staying. Because just go back and do the whole chapter 7 on stopping and on staying. It's all, it's all the same. Oops. Okay, so 7.23, 24 goes on 2 pages, Elsie.
Staying would be incorrect, with working things only in the process of stopping. It would be incorrect to say that those types of things not in the process of stopping were working things. Each and every working thing there is an entity which exhibits aging and dying all the time. What kind of working thing could stay without this kind of aging and dying?
So ordinary, ignorant me just does the dishes, just writes the note, just starts, stays, and stops, taking for granted that it all works in the way that I think it's working, right, in the moment. And he's saying, well, as you do the dishes, in order to get the dishes done, you have to be starting, staying, and stopping in every moment, right? There's a something starting, something staying, something stopping. Happening moment by moment in order for there to be the experience doing the dishes, getting them done. It's not that the whole thing starts, stays, stops. It's that moment by moment, there's a starting, there's a start, stay, stops happening like simultaneously, isn't it? Aging and dying happening. Who cares about doing dishes? While I'm doing dishes, I am aging and dying. While we're doing anything, this life is running out. But when our identity is with the process never runs out. When our identity is subject-object interaction between, there's just the happening. Always with the subject side, right? They'll never be without a subject side. But that subject side is never the same 2 moments in a row because it starts, it stays, and stops simultaneously. Bing, 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 bing. And that's what makes me, me, and you, and our whole world, and may all beings be happy. Because they could be. When my seeds are doing a world where everybody has the seeds of trying to help everybody else have a little bit of happiness. Mm. Elsie, 25. Oh no, you did this one. Joanna, 25, please.
Staying with another staying would be wrong, and with the same staying. It's just the same as the case with starting, which cannot itself be doing the starting while at the same time some other does.
Yeah. So he's going through the same thing. If I'm writing, I'm staying writing. Is this staying the same as that staying? No. Right. Does staying make more staying? Same argument. Same conclusion. Seeds ripening, seeds ripening, seeds ripening, seeds ripening. Because it's result. Experience. Experience happen by way of results of previous experience. Just not this one to this one to this one to that one. That one to this one, that one to this one, that one to this one. Until our ignorance wheedles away. And then it's all at the same time. Omniscience. So things don't stay in the way we think either. Joanna, 26.
Roxana, it's your turn.
Sorry, Roxana.
Thank you. I really don't mind whoever reads, as long as we continue. A thing which has stopped doesn't stop. And something which has yet to stop doesn't stop. A thing as well, in the process of stopping, is just the same. It's not. Or could you find a thing which had not yet started and could still come to stop? Every functioning thing.
Functioning thing which hasn't started.
It's a working thing, yeah.
A functioning thing which hasn't started is a functioning thing that can stop. Is that what you just said?
I'm just saying that all functioning things will have to come to an end sooner or later, right?
Yes. Yes. And to be a functioning, they have to have started.
Right. So I'm thinking of objects, basically,
Yeah,
produce things.
right. Right. And yet he spent half the chapter saying, you know, all those produce things that you can't ever actually find where they start.
Right.
So how can there be such a thing as a produced thing? How can there be such a thing as something that produces something else? If you can't ever find the moment they actually start, how does anything make anything else happen? Right? That's this chapter. I am so a desirer of things that I desire. Why? Because that berry pie makes me have pleasure. It's a functioning thing. Oh, let's see when that starts. Let's see how that works. Yeah. Yes, there's functioning things. Yes, they do start, stay, and stop. And no, they don't do it because here's the pen, the functioning pen that's not functioning yet finally gets in contact with my hand, which is a functioning thing, forced by my intention, which is a functioning thing, to make the pen write a note. Do I pick up a pen and write a note? Yes.
Yeah, but remember that you explained back then when we were studying this, you said, okay, if we're trying to find it, by the time it's already passed.
Right.
And if we want to find it in the future, the same. So you go by the timeline and it's gone.
Right.
We can never pinpoint it
Right.
by those stretch milliseconds or that gap that's between that.
Right.
It's so
Right.
difficult. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It means that we can't find it.
Yeah, but see how slippery that is? Well, if you can't find
is.
it, then it's not really there, says our mind. And it's like, no, because you can't find it, it's really there,
Right,
says Diamond Cutter Sutra. Okay.
right.
Because there are no beings that you can ever bring to nirvana, there will be beings that you bring to nirvana.
Yeah, and the Dharma. It's when you read about the Dharma, right? There's no Dharma at all.
Yeah,
That's why there's Dharma.
Yeah, there's nothing the Buddha teaches, which is why the Buddha teaches.
Right.
Ah,
Yeah, but
yeah, but
my mind all the time really goes to, yeah, okay, there's nothing self-existent out there, but I'm producing everything by my seeds.
right,
So my seeds
Right.
produce everything.
right,
So even if I'm in the process is producing karma. I mean, like the seeds, and the seeds are making the things outside. They are not stopping by their own side, but it's me kind of still triggering the process. So I'm always kind of really blocked here. And the Kachik side, that I still think that it doesn't apply to seeds. Seeds are the one starting, the one producing, the produced
Right.
things.
right.
So I'm so happy that he's at some point going to that too.
Yeah, we
So
will. We'll go to
oh,
class as well.
it's awful.
It goes both, it cuts both ways though. There's also the seeds to undo the corruption as well. We have that, whether we want to go there or not, it isn't just seeds, positive, negative. There's also seeds reversal too. And we all
You
have
mean
that.
with the purification, right?
Yeah, with
You meant, yeah,
purifying seeds that you're
yeah,
doing at the time you're doing it.
Right,
yeah.
Or
right,
and it's
No,
the
but
awareness that you've done something immoral or done something that was unkind. That's basically what we're purifying.
yeah. And yet my seeds produce the Dharma. My seeds produce the future Buddhas.
Right. And you know what? Underlying, I've come to recognize in my own mind when I do that, yeah, but it's all my seeds. I can feel in the imprint that gets in that there's the me independent of,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and that's where the conundrum hits.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the me is part of all of
Yeah.
that seed ripening.
Yeah.
And that shifts it, but then it's like, yeah, right? It gets really hard to stay in that.
Mm.
Yes, it's all my seeds, including me. Yeah.
But
And that
you're gonna be forced to have that until you purify enough. You're just gonna be
Exactly.
forced to.
exactly. So I did like it's popping into my mind now that we've been talking about functioning things like the pen, like the doing the dishes, like the berry pie. But what if chapter 7, we looked at it again from the point of view of any favorite mental affliction? When does it start? How does it stay? When does it stop? And take it all the way to our own ignorance, our own belief in things existing independent of ripening results of our own behaviors. Might that be worth spending more time on chapter 7? To think about our ignorance. Did our ignorance ever start? Does it stay? Can it stop? How much more of this chapter 7 do we have? It's like going on forever. It is endless.
This is really how do you people say juicy? I think this chapter really has something very, very strong. I really would enjoy having this from the side of the main mental affliction, from the root affliction that all of us have. Maybe at least for the last verses to go with this in
Yeah, about
mind.
it stopping.
Yeah.
I mean, if I gossip, it seems so innocent, and it's me hurting my Nay Lama. And the issue with the gossip isn't so much the gossip, it's that I don't analyze it. This is the issue with social media. All right, some celebrity died, and then you tell everyone, I saw it on Facebook. Well, if you don't analyze it, then you're already repeating something that's not true, and you're just spreading wrong information, which is in some ways spreading ignorance. So the issue with my mental affliction with the gossip is I'm too lazy to analyze it. And so it could really hurt my Nay Lama, because then he feels like I'm saying something about him that isn't true, and then he doesn't want to talk to me anymore. So it's really that I don't want to analyze the situation in my mental affliction.
Yeah.
But then I tell Lama Sarani, I don't know how to analyze a separate situation. That's the problem. And then she says, well, you might want to try different things. I tried different things when I was just starting. And maybe the different things aren't ACI 13. That's not the place to start.
Right. Heart Sutra one is a good one. Chapter J. Yeah, 13 is not a good place to start. You're learning. You're analyzing well. All right, so let's give some thought. I'll give you the choice. You can give some thought to your own favorite mental affliction and how the starting, staying, stopping argument would help you understand it better. Or we can go straight to the ignorance and and dig into that one. So I'll work on the ignorance one in particular, but everybody feel free to look at chapter 7 from the point of view of the functioning thing called my favorite mental affliction and see what starts it. So we would do, what do I think started? Right? Where's my blame factor? Who causes me to feel that way? What causes me to feel that way? And then we would analyze, when does that start? And then you could even analyze the mental affliction itself. What about this feeling makes me have that reaction? Where does that start? When it's staying, how long does it stay? Why does it stay that long? What makes it stay? What makes it stop? And then, I mean, that would be the two ways. The third is the me having that, but that's too slippery. So first we look at the blame, and then we apply the analyzing to see if that which we are blaming can really cause it. And then see where, if that's not really causing it, and I'm really having it, then see where you go with that. And the clue is it's a result. Every experience is a result of something. And see if you can find the logical argument that shows you it's like, oh, my past imprints made. We have the tools that we can do that.
I mean, I will just say that with this whole gossip thing, it's actually been a blessing, because the teachings say that you can't get to shamatha and you can't get beyond without meditating an hour a day and then doing analytical meditation. So this has forced me to ask, well, what is analytical meditation and how do I do it?
Good. All righty. So we still have not finished chapter 7. In our review of chapter 7, trying to get to chapter 15. This is very fun. All right, but we did get to 727.
But one thing I've learned is review is key. It is key to learning. Review is key.
You're right. You are right. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We learned a lot. We've shared a lot. Planting seeds with that motivation that we will use someday to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's a great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you, and then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone we love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with the wisdom of loving kindness, filled with compassion. And may it be so. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. That was very enjoyable, enlightening. Have a great week.